Talking about the economy, Nigeria 64. All the way from Australia, we have Inu Doyup. He's a financial analyst and expert and a public affairs analyst. He's also a pastor. Inu Doyup, welcome to Political Spectrum.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. I've been very enlightened by a senior brother, Amanum Akpabio, Esquire. Thank you.
You left us, and you're looking good, by the way, in Australia.
Oh, it's the grace of God. We give God thanks.
Okay, so Nigeria will be 64 tomorrow, and especially I'd like to get your perspective as someone in the diaspora. The economy was so crushing that quite a number of Nigerians who could found their way out of this country. And the first question I'll ask, what do you think is the loss? Many years ago, I had asked, what's his name, very erudite or political player, I asked him whether he thought the brain drain associated with what we now term as the Japa syndrome is injurious to Nigeria. But he was actually thinking that even though in the short term it was injurious, but in the long term he believed it's the children of those people who are relocated to get better capacity are actually the solution, in his opinion, to the future of Nigeria. Do you share those thoughts?
Well, I partially share it because that the conclusion is conditional. Conditional in the sense that there needs to be a system in place or a deliberate strategy to ensure the return of those children whom we feel are the long-term endpoint solution to Nigeria's problem. Because it's one thing to go outside, acquire capacity. It's another thing to have an environment that encourages people to come back to contribute to national development. So that's why I say I agree to it. I agree with what he says partially, to the extent that we can put up a system, a system in place to ensure the attraction to bring back these brain games from out of the country.
And looking at it again, let's bring it back. I'm hearing you're saying partially and partially not. But take, for instance, I know you're not a medical doctor, but we are having reports that a significant portion of those in medicine, particularly doctors, have moved away from Nigeria. Some of them, a significant number of them are in the UK, for instance. And in spite of the fact that the UK is itself facing difficulties with regards to its health structure, the influx of Nigerians is helping them. And when you hear, for instance, those in Kanu, doctors, by the way, in Kanu are about to embark on a strike from tomorrow, and the complaint is that they are having one medical doctor to 33 residents. That's the ratio. When you hear something like that, that's a first-hand impact in the country. How does it resonate with you?
Well, that's it's the sad reality that Nigeria is facing, and it's not just doctors. Several from other sectors are getting out, so there need to be a system in place. I don't have the right proposal, but there needs to be a system in place to facilitate training. But another thing that can be done could be some partnerships that I think the hospitals and health facilities can get in some partnership as the Nigerians are going out, there can be some partnership to transfer knowledge online, virtually. So systems outside transfer knowledge to the practitioners in country and to be able to boost, because it's all going to be based on how much you can generate intellectual capacity from within. So there should be some way to encourage leadership to rise and get into some collaborations that can improve the skill of those who are left behind.
Now let's get back to your core area of competence. You're a chartered accountant, you're a financial expert. When you look at Nigeria's financial policies, economic policies, monetary policies with regards to the increase in the rate for borrowing loans, for the interest rate, for instance, and coupled with issues of taxation, unavailability of foreign exchange, and all of the things that are facing us. And yet, the president and his team keep calling for patience. They say, be patient. The economic model we are trying to pursue is going to help us in the future if we are patient. The first question I ask is, will we have time to be patient? Will Nigeria have time to be patient? And I say this because tomorrow, there are people who are saying they are going to embark on another national protest. Just a month ago, there was one they called End Bad Governance. And this one is slated for tomorrow as a sequel to that. So I'm wondering, when Mr. President and his team say Nigerians should be patient with him, but people are so hungry if they've not eaten, and will we have time to be patient?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Number one, policies are the impact of policies, good policies when they're put in place, usually begins to yield results after a couple of years. In the initial stages, things will get difficult and spiky. Now, I don't think the subject of patience is the patience of Nigeria is something that is being well managed, in my opinion, because if you say that I should be patient, and yet every day it looks as if there are two classes being created now. The middle class is almost totally wiped out. And it looks as though you are speaking to the generality of the populace who are the lower income earners to be patient, and that there is a class of people who these things are not really affecting. It has a way of wearing out the capacity for the people to endure. So I think that while the call to be patient, because truly, before some of these, there are very great policies that have been put in place. So bringing up policies is not really the tool for change. It is the implementation of the policies that is the most important aspect to focus on. You can have a good policy, but wrongly implemented. So it is that implementation that will even guarantee the results of the policy. It's not just having it. We've had several good policies. We've had several good focuses in different governments. So coming up with policies, writing it up, coming up with a slogan really is not a factor of production. It is how that is chased and implemented. That's what leads to the result. So if that's a way to manage the feelings and the perceptions of the general populace, let's see the sacrifices being made. Let the sacrifices be made. Let it be visible that the sacrifices are being made across board from those who are high. Leadership needs to be seen to be making sacrifices and not just policies. I think that's where we have a problem. Where leadership is not seen where leadership is perceived to pay lip service to the sacrifice that the general populace is being called to make. Now that itself is a breeding ground for trouble and any other negative vices.
You just hit a major point there, because just at the eve, just before a few weeks ago, a month ago or thereabout, Nigerians embarked on that hunger protest. There was news in the air that Mr. President was about to get another presidential aircraft, and as at then, the Senate said perhaps if Mr. President needs a jet and requests that they would give in to his demand. Of course, not wanting, in their opinion, the argument was that why should Mr. President's life be endangered? And some would even say there was this accusation that the Senate President had said that his life was more important. Of course, he denied that allegation, the Senate President, I mean. But a few weeks after the protest and all of that, lo and behold, Mr. President is flying around in a new Airbus A320, or 30 rather, Airbus A330, which beggars the point, which leading to your area of core competence now. The place of accounting. Our country as it is, no one seems to be talking about taking a look at a forensic examination of our books, so to speak. And our debt, for instance, runs in almost $100 billion US. And I'm wondering how a country like Nigeria can survive with that. Just by the eve of 2014, about to turn the leaf for a new presidency, the then central bank governor, now Emir of Kano, had accused the sitting government of Goodluck Jonathan of embezzling about 39 billion or 49 billion US dollars. Of course, he said it was not true, and forensic examination proved that it was not true. What they came up with was about 1.6 billion US dollars that seem to not be properly accounted for. But now I'm asking the question, shouldn't we, because we are hearing talks about going for another set of loans, we are hearing talks about putting in place financial policies like taxation, and no one is really talking about having a forensic look of our books and seeing where we can claw back some of the monies that may have been misappropriated or outright stolen by government officials in this administration or the ones prior to this. Shouldn't that be something we should explore?
Yeah, that's it's something you should explore. But I would like that the burden of that exploration, I'd like it to be on the opposition parties.
How so?
Now, what I'm saying is, look, in the last election, the president, His Excellency, was declared to win.
Oh my! I'm having a little network-related issues there. We hope that we'll have Udoyeb join us again. He was saying that idea of a forensic examination or auditing, so to speak, of the books should rather be handed over to the opposition party. I wanted to hear his thoughts with regards to that. But very fair conversation and line at there, because we are hearing reports that from the visit to China, there are some things in the offing that may lead to some loan. And this conversation around loan itself is a problematic one, being that on one side, to move out of the economic quagmire that we are in, there may be need for loan. Only a few months ago, a former deputy governor of the CBN, Moghalu, and a presidential aspirant, he had suggested that if Nigeria is going through austerity or austere measures, some of those that are identical to some of the set of requirements that the IMF and the World Bank would need to be in place to grant us loans, for instance, that if we are doing all of it, we are pulling out subsidies, we are floating the naira, for instance, why couldn't we benefit, say, from getting an extra loan? Oh, thank goodness we have Udoyeb back on the line. Please finish your thoughts.
Yeah, so I was saying, so the the frontline contenders for that seat should actually get into a point where the policy is brought out, they criticize the policy, appraise the good aspect of the policy, and even prefer, if you were the person in power, this is how you will get these policies implemented, contribute the ideas, sensitize the masses. If things are happening that the masses need to get to know, the general populace need to get to know, are borrowing increasing and all that, those frontline people should have machineries in place to enlighten the masses of what is going on in the back end, and they should be the ones to push their system to demand this forensic information made available to people and all that. You don't expect a market woman in the village to step up to the court and get a court order to demand to look at the books of the nation. It's the last thing that will come into the mind of that individual, the general populace. But the people who were contending for that position, the political parties that are in opposition now, should set up a machinery to get those things done.
Now, what you just pointed out, well, one would say that is the core area responsibility of the National Assembly, being given the constitutional responsibility of oversight functions, particularly with regards to financial issues with the executive and other issues of national concern. Do you see this National Assembly, particularly our former guest, Barrister alluded to that, talking about when a particular political party is in power, the near impossibility of having that National Assembly to be unbiased and objective in choosing, for instance, in what we're talking about then was INEC, an INEC chairman. Now, coming back to what we're talking about with regards to auditing the nation, do you see this APC-dominated National Assembly stepping up to the plate to demand financial awareness or auditing of the Nigerian system, as it were? Because some of the problems that we are facing, especially with regards to the seized presidential jet, stems from government entering into certain deals without necessarily fully fleshing out the responsibility and culpability of the government in the first place.
Yeah, but I mean, it's that's a no-brainer. If you have the majority of the people in the National Assembly also in the ruling party, it's going to be difficult to think that they would call the ruling party to order. It's going to be a difficult expectation.
Oh, wow. A really interesting conversation to have with you. Inu Doyop is a chartered accountant, a financial expert. He's also a pastor and a public affairs analyst, joining us all the way from Australia. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy your stay.
Much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, we coast to the end of the program today. I tried to get David Ogunshola. He was shuttling between South Korea and Qatar. Quite couldn't get him. And then he sent us a video of his thoughts with regards to Nigeria 64, particularly referencing what we should be doing to be on the right track for the future. Let's take a listen to David Ogunshola.
So there's a saying, you can only arrive at a destination that you're already going to. Meaning if you're not going somewhere, you don't have a likelihood of ever getting there. We need to be asking ourselves, to tell where we'll be in 25 years, where are we heading to right now? Is there any direction that we are heading to? And you see, it's not about deceiving ourselves, it's not about just fancy words, it's about really looking at the system, looking at our different systems, in what direction do we seem to be moving. Now, if you want to criticize or analyze our system, it's good to be objective. There are a few positive things that are happening. There are a few positive signals that are happening that may indicate that we may be heading in a good direction, but there are also some things that are showing that we may not be heading in a good direction. So I'm not going to talk about them. For example, now, Positively, there are a few things that have started happening that we can see as green lights. For example, we're beginning to invest heavily in human capital development. So there's a program that is going on currently, the 3MTT, where we're investing in training tech talents across the country. It may just look like a very small activity right now, but if we're able to be consistent, because that's another thing, change will happen if we are consistently moving in the right direction. We cannot do anything fire brigade 1 month, 2 months, or 1 year, 2 years and expect to see results. We can't see results in even 5 years. The way we are neck deep in a lot of mess. So if we continue to invest in capital development, for example, in the next maybe 10, 15 years, we're going to have a very large pool of technical talent that will see a lot of development happening, a lot of maybe exporting talent, and we can improve our economic complexity, meaning we'll have the kind of minds who can actually build complex things that can happen out of Nigeria. Yeah, I mean, that's something good that is happening. And in some cases, so another good sign is that you're beginning to have pockets of educators who are beginning to question the status quo. So once in a while, you find into small communities, small conferences where school leaders, educators are asking questions about how do we run our education system? How is our country currently running? Now, if we're able to continue that, it may look like a very small fraction. We don't have like a critical mass yet. But after a while, we'll actually be able to get the ball rolling. So that may not have any impact now, but eventually we might tip the ball and we can get systems to begin to change. But there's a lot that is not happening right. There's a lot that are not working well for us in terms of where are we headed and what direction are we going. For example, no system is built in a vacuum. Every system is built on a very strong value system. There has to be a value, national values that actually drive what we do and what we become as a nation. And I think that we are one nation that really does not have a thriving or a solid value system. Our anyhowness really is one of the things working against us. So people don't pay attention to rules, we don't pay attention to systems, we don't regard processes. For example, find 10 Nigerians in a place trying to board the bus, they're not going to queue. You get to a place, you want to be the next person. That lack of order, no matter how much talent we develop, no matter how much intelligence we gather, that lack of order will continue to work against us. We will never be able to build anything working. That's why you go to places and our systems don't work. As you can tell, I'm traveling right now. I mean, I've been traveling like probably the last 2 weeks. You get to places and things just work. People who should be at their duty posts are at their duty posts. People who are supposed to be doing things are doing things. In our own case, because of that anyhowness, that lack of value system where we don't have work ethic, strong work ethic, we don't respect time, we don't respect processes, someone who should be responsible for something will just not be there, and what they're supposed to be doing does not work. Until we begin to correct that, hey, if you're in the next 25 years, we're going nowhere. Let us develop all the talent in the world. Let us train people as much as we want to. If we don't fix those gaps, things are not going to work. And those things have to go to the grassroots. It has to start from primary school, from children. So children learn the processes of doing things. In Nigeria, we have zebra crossings. Who respects it? Who pays attention to them? People don't pay attention to traffic lights. People don't pay attention to little systems that we don't pay attention to. They are going to work against us. So I think that those are the things that if we are going to have any different destination in 25 years, we must start going in those directions now. And it's a lot of work. Honestly, it's a lot of work. I think people have tried it in the past. Maybe they've done it for 2-3 years, they didn't see results and then they gave up. We will not see results in 10 years. Let me be honest with you. This is something that we have to do consistently, painstakingly, one government after the other. Invest in a national value reorientation across board. People go into industries with the right value system, with the right work ethic, with the right regard for one another, for processes, for due process, for systems, I think that's what is going to determine where we'll be in 25 years. Otherwise, if we continue the way we are going, forget. I don't think much is going to change in 25 years. Countries that were behind us, far, far behind us in the last 60 years, you can't even compare where they are today, because somehow there has been consistency of growth in the right direction. Nothing is going to change in 5 years. I'll be honest with you. No government, no 8 years government will be able to effect a significant change, tangible change. But if one builds on the other and we are consistently going in the same direction, maybe something is going to change for us. That's my thought about where we are. It's Independence Day, 64 years, right? I hope that we're able to probably make the next 60 years count. Yep, that's my take. Thank you, Fiok. This is a tough question. 25.
That was David Ogunshola. I tried to track him down across the world, so to speak, but really stark and in some one aspect bright, but also some other aspect left me wondering whether it's something that we could do. We raised quite a number of issues. It reminds me of a trip I had to Kigali, and my shock at how things work. I was in the country for a few weeks and only had a horn bled 4 times. Security at every stop. And if you've been to Kigali, you will see how windy the road is, being a city on 1,000 hills, they like to call themselves. And I just kept wondering, if this were in Nigeria, how many accidents would we have per hour, per day? So our ability to fix this country going forward depends on 3 things, like my 3 guests have talked about. One, of course, is the system upon which this system is placed, or this country is placed, the rule of law. The second is the leaders who should lead by example. But the third is the people of this country. And if we have these 3 things put together, by no means would Nigeria be a country to be reckoned with. It will be global and mighty, like we're destined to be. So this is me saying happy 64th anniversary to Nigeria. For those who are planning to make their voice heard tomorrow, do the best you can to be heard, but be heard the right way. Don't be violent whatsoever. And there will be, like we've heard and like we've witnessed in the past, agents provocateurs. Don't be pulled in. Whatever you do, be safe. But let's remember that this country belongs to all of us. From our studios, I'm Ifyo Kumoika, and this is me signing off. You enjoy the rest of your day.